Chapter 11. How are you doing today, boys? Mr. Crum asked. Good, Jack said. Yeah, good, really good, I added. We were out on the loading dock of the newspaper offices getting Jack's papers ready to deliver. Peter Cook just called in sick. I was wondering if you could deliver an extra route for me today, Mr. Crum asked. If you do not have anything else to do. Jack looked at me. I guess I could. My brother could help me. He's responsible enough that he could do a route all by himself. Jack thought I was responsible? Where did that come from? How old are you, George? Almost 12. In just a few days, Jack added. I usually like my delivery boys to be at least 13, but sometimes rules are meant to be broken, especially for a responsible young man. Thanks, I said. No promises, you understand, and there are no routes available today, but helping today, and you will be paid for your efforts, of course, only works in your favor. That's great, Jack said. A little extra money could buy an extra treat or two, Mr. Crum smiled. We don't buy many treats, Jack told him. I use most of my money to buy war savings stamps. Me too, I said. The stamps were issued by the government, and people bought them to support the war. Each stamp cost 25 cents, and when you saved 16 of them, your book was filled, and you traded it in for a certificate. Then, in 7 years, the government would give you $5 for your certificate. 2 more stamps and my book will be full, Jack said proudly. Very commendable, Mr. Crum said. It is nice to know that you are not simply wasting your money. Do you save stamps? I asked Mr. Crum. Oh, believe me, I am doing my part to make sure the right side wins this war. Now back to the business at hand. You'll need another newspaper bag and the list of Peter's customers. And you'll have to prepare his papers. Do you know how to do that, George? Sure, no problem. It wasn't difficult. It involved making sure that all the sections were in place, slipping in any advertisement supplements, and then folding it so it would hold together when it was thrown. Come and we'll get that bag and list. I followed him back through the loading area, passing by the familiar posters. The one that said, "Your country needs you," meant a lot more to me than it had the day before. I was now an agent of my country. So, George, I trust that you and your brother have not been back up to the farm we talked about. No, we haven't, I said. I felt uncomfortable. Was I breaking the oath by even talking about it? That pleases me, but also surprises me. It remains the best mystery around here. I thought you and your brother would be standing on the fence and looking in as far as you could see. You told us we shouldn't go. I did? Yes, you said we shouldn't go up there, so we didn't. I wish everybody would listen to me that well. He handed me a canvas sack. Thank you. I'll return it right after I deliver the papers. That's all right. You hang on to it. It might not be that long before you will be needing it every day, he added with a smile. Did you know that many of the finest reporters started out as paper boys? And in some remarkable cases, they had their first big break and wrote their first stories for the paper while they were still delivering it. Is that not remarkable? It is, I agreed. And that is why it is important always to keep your eyes open. Now here's a copy of Peter's delivery list, he said, pulling it out of his pocket. His route is smaller than your brother's. He has only 87 papers to deliver. That won't take too long. I followed Mr. Crum back out to where my brother was just finishing up the last of his papers. Today, you and your brother should work together. Later, if this becomes a regular assignment, that will not be necessary. That was fine with me. The last thing I wanted was to run into those boys again when Jack wasn't around. I didn't want to rely on the police chief chancing by. Actually, I didn't want to run into him either. I was talking to your brother about the old Sinclair property, he said. You did not have any interest in going out there anymore? Jack looked at me with alarm, and then his expression softened. We just haven't had any time lately. Really? What have you been doing instead? Nothing much. Swimming in the creek. Corbett's Creek? I think that's what it's called, Jack said. That is actually the western boundary of the Sinclair property. Did you know that? Mr. Crum asked. No, I just knew it was a nice place to swim. Is the water deep? In some places, Jack said. Mostly shallow. We like to just float in our inner tubes. That would be relaxing. Could I suggest that while you are floating, you keep your eyes open? I guess we could, Jack said. Excellent. As I was saying to your brother, the best story around these parts is contained within the boundaries of that farm. Of that, I am certain. If we see anything, we'll let you know about it, Jack agreed. Who knows? You might be the ones who break the story. But won't they block the story? Not let you run it, if it has to do with the army? I asked. You are correct, he said. They will most likely not allow it to be published. It might simply be something that is shared with me to satisfy my curiosity. As I mentioned, newspaper men are most curious and nosy by nature. So if you hear or see anything, you tell me, and if I find out anything, I will tell you. Agreed? Sure, no problem, Jack told him. I guess so. There is nothing to guess. We are all members of the same family, the same newspaper family, and we will share information. That is how good newspaper men work. Now, I shall get back to the job of running the paper, and you get back to delivering it. We watched him go back inside, leaving us alone. I leaned in close to Jack. You didn't mean any of that, did you? About sharing information? I nodded. Of course not. Let's not talk about it now. Fold papers. Jack went inside to get more newspapers, and I continued to fold. A couple of the other carriers came out with their bundles. They nodded a greeting, and one walked off while the second climbed onto a bike and rode away. Jack returned with his arm full of papers. I wanted to talk, so I tried to get mine ready as quickly as I could. The money for doing this extra route today will go in my pay packet, Jack said. You can have all of it. I think we should split it. You're coming with me to help deliver, and you're coming along with me to deliver my route, he said. But I always come with you. Yeah, so maybe I should always be giving you a split of my pay. Are you serious? I couldn't believe my ears. Not much, but something, as long as you don't bug me. I guess that means I'll never see a cent of it. Jack flashed me a smile. There's always a chance you won't bug me, at least not too much. Trucks pulled up and left, and 4 more paper boys arrived and started to prepare their bundles. Jack liked to arrive early because sometimes there was a foul up with the press and there weren't enough papers until later. Mr. Crum appeared at the door of the loading dock, and for a second I thought he was coming out to talk to us, but then he disappeared back inside again. That's the last of them, Jack said as he stuffed 2 more papers into my bag. Can you carry them? Of course I can. I stood up and almost staggered under the weight. I'd never carried his bag when it was full, and I was shocked by how much it weighed. Are you sure? I'm sure, I groaned through clenched teeth. Now, you know why the most popular routes are the ones that start close by. You can start unloading the bag right away instead of carting it halfway across town first. He started walking. Is Peter's route halfway across town? I asked. No, he said, shaking his head. That's great. It's actually all the way across town, Jack laughed. But we'll deliver my route out of both bags. You on one side of the street and me on the other. And that way both bags will get lighter. Thanks. Jack stopped in his tracks. What's gotten into you? What do you mean? All this thanking me stuff. Stop it. Sorry, I apologized. And stop that too. Quit being so mannerly. Sure. Shut up, Jack. Is that better? He smiled, and we walked another couple of blocks in friendly silence. We're okay to talk here, Jack said after a while. I didn't want to talk to Mr. Crum anymore. He was awfully interested in the camp. He kept going on and on. He was making me nervous. Me too. He was asking me a lot of questions when we went inside to get the bag. He was? What sort of questions? A lot of the same ones he was asking you. It was almost like he was checking to see if I was telling the truth. I don't know, Jack said. He's got me wondering again. Come on, Jack. He isn't a spy. Remember what they said at the camp. If they thought he was a spy, they'd have arrested him. But why else would he be so interested? Because he's a newspaper guy. He wants to know because of what he does for a living. Maybe, maybe not. All I know is that we especially can't talk to him about the camp. So if he asks any more questions, we just say nothing, right? Not nothing. We have to say something. The trick is to say nothing when we're saying something, he tried to explain. You lost me. We can't just pretend we have a zipper on our mouths and cover our ears with our hands when he asks questions. We have to answer him, but not tell him anything, Jack said. I'm still lost. Like when he asked about Corbett's Creek, I couldn't just pretend I didn't know it. I told him it was shallow in some places and deeper in others, like every other creek in the world. So if he asks me some more questions, what should I say? Just nod your head and say something that really doesn't mean anything. I guess I can do that, I said. Funny though. What's funny? Jack asked. The day after we signed that oath saying we won't talk about what we saw, then somebody keeps asking us questions trying to get us to talk about it. It's almost like we're being tested. Jack stopped walking and grabbed me by the arm. Do you think? Think what? I asked. That Mr. Crum is actually working for them and they got him to ask those questions? Who got him to ask those questions? The Germans? No, somebody working for the camp. He's part of them, and they asked him to question us to see if we were trustworthy. I started to chuckle. Don't laugh. I'm sorry, it's just half a minute ago you thought he was a German agent, and now you think he's a spy for our side? He could be, Jack argued. They do have agents out here. You don't know that for sure. Yes, I do. How else do you explain how they could take out the DIL phone so Mom couldn't call, and how they made the bus break down? How do you explain that? I didn't have an answer, and I was beginning to wonder myself. So either Mr. Crum is nothing but a reporter, or he's a German spy, or he's an agent working with the camp, I said. He could be anything. He could be. No matter what he is, though, we're not saying anything to him, or anybody else. Matter of fact, I don't even want to talk to you about it anymore. Let's just finish up the papers and go home for lunch.